This dude is cooked, man. I just don't know how else to say it. And I hate to be mean, but he's just not good, bro. Like, he has no pass rush bag. He has no explosion. Can't really commit any kind of move to memory to do. I know Robert Hunt is the big money guy. He's probably better overall, but I just think that Damian Lewis's mentality and impact is just different. Now, Robert, they pushed him around, man. I just felt so bad for him, bro. They bullied him. He rolled over on his head, got up, tried to make a tackle, and still fell down, just stumbling around. We knew we were skeptical and critical of Bryce Young, but in terms of Andy Dalton, we have to have a discussion about Andy Dalton as well. What's up, Panthers Nation? It's Aaron Duncan with another video brought to you by Necessary Bluntness. And I want to do a little bit of a different style. I know I typically do my deep dive and film breakdowns on certain players, but I want to do a comprehensive discussion about the film with some film to support it as well, just to give my overall viewpoints from the offense and the defense. I'm going to call these type of videos after further review because I have my instant reactions after the game on Sundays, but obviously once cooler heads prevail, the emotions are gone. I get a chance to deep dive into the tape, see all the players on the field, not just the broadcast. I wanted to come back and give my thoughts about what's going on. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Aaron Duncan. Like I said, subscribe to get Panthers content, news and updates, all the above. Like I said, those post-game live streams are always fun. Even more fun when we win. We just haven't done that much. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I want to start with the defense. Now, overall versus the run. Now, we know this defense is the worst in the league currently, especially in terms of points per game. Now, versus the run, I will say I did see some progress, and I did see them doing a better job with their fits, getting it and getting leverage versus the run, like taking on blocks a certain way. But it just seems like every play there's still a guy or two just getting completely smoked. Then that's the block that springs it. And most of the time, it's inside or one of the defensive ends that's in that 5 technique getting washed or getting double teamed, and it just continues to happen. There's never a collective effort overall of everybody doing the right thing at the right time together. I have seen some flashes up front from the defensive line, of course, being a little bit more stout in terms of Shy Tuttle and Ashawn Robinson, but they're being forced to play almost every down because of the lack of depth, and these guys aren't really pass rushers, in particular Ashawn Robinson. But like I said, the whole unit just never consistently puts it together, and they're just not stout enough up front. You can see them just getting pushed around, bullied, like they're just not tough enough up front, because when they do make plays, none of them are behind the line of scrimmage. None of them on the other side of the line of scrimmage. You never see us getting penetration. You never see tackles for losses. We're just kind of we play catch. We don't attack. I know we have this read and react type of defense. It's just kind of the style of the 3-4 and the Ajiro Vero system, but it's going to be hard if you're always letting the offense get ahead of the sticks, and that's what they do because they're so successful on first and second down. They continue to try to blame third down to be the biggest culprit, but the way that you get better at third down is you put the offense into disadvantageous positions on third down by getting negative plays on first and second, whether you blitz, which creates a negative play, a sack, or it forces them to hold you because they get beat, something like that, or whatever. But we're just not getting that thing. We're not successful when we blitz. We're not getting home with our individual pass rushers. And it's just hard to continue to let the offense stay on schedule because the whole playbook is open. You're always going to be off balance. And we just don't have enough dogs to get things done up front. Just not tough enough overall, in my opinion. Versus the pass, when they're not blowing coverages, which is very, very regularly, they actually can do a pretty solid job in coverage. Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn, they do take some lumps ever so often, but outside of the miscommunications, like I said, things aren't that bad, but they just have to be able to hold up a little bit more, and it's tough having to cover that long, especially playing zone when you don't have a pass rush. Now, obviously, it's hard to play a lot more man coverage when you don't have a pass rush, but we've seen Ajiro Vero having the highest rate of cover 3, and the reason why they do that is because they play more of a match cover 3, and that match cover 3 pretty much turns into a man type of coverage, so just a lot of single high, and they're using that extra safety. Instead of having 2 high, they're having that extra safety coming down down into the box, trying to make plays, whether it's Xavier Woods or Jordan Fuller, and just inserting that guy into the run game just because they know how bad we are at stopping the run. But the secondary is going to continue to be helpless until we have some kind of pass rush, but it doesn't look like anybody's coming to save us, like Jake DeLone said. So it's just going to be a long day for the secondary against the pass because quarterbacks are just going to pretty much be able to pick them apart and be comfortable in the pocket, sitting back there, taking their time to pick things apart. But I'm not feeling good about the prospects of this defense. But just getting back to the overall, defensive line, in terms of pass rush, I was actually surprised at what I saw from Charles Harris. Charles Harris, number 40, was brought in a little bit later, I think week 2 or so as a vet. He seemed to be the only one on the defensive line that actually has a pass rush plan. And when I say that, I mean like a guy that's actually trying to work moves, whether it's a rip move, whether it's a spin, whether it's an outside counter to the inside. Everybody else seems to just run straight up, try as a bull rush, and if that doesn't work, they kind of just give up and chop their feet in place. You can actually actively see Charles Harris working. He had the highest grade according to PFF of the whole unit, and you can actually see him doing his thing. He had 3 total pressures on 26 pass rush snaps, so not phenomenal, but he actually was doing things and getting close to the quarterback. Also had a quarterback hit. No sacks on the day though, but we're definitely missing Clowney, and even Clowney ain't enough to save this pass rush. But in terms of the other side with DJ Johnson, this dude is cooked, man. I just don't know how else to say it, and I hate to be mean, but he's just not good, bro. Like, he has no pass rush bag. He has no explosion. Can't really commit any kind of move to memory to do. He can't even set the edge, which when he had that draft call, they asked him to do. He can't even do that. And so if he's not bringing that to the table, he doesn't need to be on the field. It's just the fact that we've signed our 12th edge rusher this year to try to find answers is the only reason that he's getting there, and he's healthy. So he's cooked. And outside of a few backside chase down tackles where he's just running and hustling, he actually brings nothing to the table. And the faster we'll be able to find somebody to put him out in our rearview mirror, the better, because this guy is just not helping the team at all in any facet of the game. Maybe he has his role on special teams eventually, but in terms of just playing the D-line, he's not helping this team. All right, so let's move on to the linebacking core. Of course, we have rookie Trevin Wallace is wearing the green dot still. He's going into his second start against the Falcons. My thoughts on him is he's still a work in progress in terms of just coverage and awareness and diagnosing plays and being sure of what he's seeing and just like not covering grass, right? Because when you run a lot of zone coverage like the Panthers do, there's crossing routes and stuff happening. You obviously have eyes on the quarterback, but sometimes you can get paralyzed just looking at the quarterback instead of actually like finding work, like looking left to right, scanning, see where you need to go. And sometimes he just kind of just freezes and just sits there and not just literally standing there like a zombie, but he just doesn't move, like not active, not looking for the routes right around him. And like there'll be somebody a yard or two away that he could probably jump and make a play there because he's not getting threatened anywhere else, but it kind of just only does what he's supposed to do instead of like recognizing schemes and pass routes and knowing what type of stuff may come. Like if the check down is coming your way, go ahead and kind of bite on that. That way you can make the tackle immediately once the running back catches the football. And I think the pass game is just something that's going to come with more experience. The more you see different plays, the more you can diagnose more plays. Stuff gets more familiar with you in terms of just the coverage and, of course, understanding the scheme. But I think versus the run, I like what I saw in terms of just the improvement in terms of his pursuit angles, sideline to sideline, just maintaining leverage and staying in his gap and playing his gap, because we know the Atlanta Falcons, they love to run that outside zone. They love to get those cutbacks. They want to get Algier and Robinson to the perimeter. And I thought Trevin Wallace did a good job. When I say maintaining leverage, when these offensive linemen, they're trying to push you, and they're doing a bunch of zone down blocks and try to push you out of the way. That way they can get a cutback. He did a good job keeping one hand free, because those linemen are trying to get to the second level and get to you or get you cut off so the running back can come and go outside. But I thought Trevin Wallace did a good job on running plays, getting outside and keeping one hand free. If you keep one hand free and only get blocked by one hand, man, you can always shed those blocks pretty easy. Now, if you let them get square on you, you start playing patty cake with them, you're not going to be able to shed those blocks, and those big linemen that are bigger than you, obviously, as a linebacker, are going to be able to have their way with you and wash you out of the play or do whatever. But I thought he did a good job. I just think he needs to be a lot faster in terms of processing, and once he processes it, go get it. Like, you have the athleticism, you have that run and hit factor. I want to see him make some more impact plays. I think he had a total of like 9 tackles, something like that, according to PFF, and he was credited with 3 stops. Stops are a stat for in terms of considered a loss for the offense, but I think he just needs to be able to be a little bit more faster because the plays are there in front of him. He just needs to be more aggressive and attack. Don't sit there and catch and wait on the plays to come to you. Even though you're in position, don't wait for it to come to you. Go get it. If you see your gap, you're in your gap, you're doing a good job, you've done your assignment, you see the running back coming back your way, shoot that gap. That's what the better linebackers do. That's what a Shaq would do. That's what a Frankie Louvu would do. You take those chances, you shoot that gap when it's there, go get the running back in the backfield, or you make him dance around in the backfield, and then your homeboys and your teammates will come make the tackle. So I just think that the confidence standpoint and being sure that you're sure what you're seeing, diagnosing and read it and go get it and have that run and hit factor is the next evolution for Trevin Wallace. But I love to watch film from week to week to see the growth from what he did against Chicago in terms of the run game, which was a mess and pretty much a disaster, to this week to see him consciously maintaining his gap, consciously hitting the gap and being in right position, consciously keeping that outside arm free so linemen can't take advantage of you, and then making some plays. They just happen to be either 1-yard gains or 3-yard gains or 4-yard gains, but I want to see make plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Like I talked about earlier, those negative plays will help them out in terms of third down and getting off the field, because you need to try to get them in third and medium and third and long instead of having them live in third and 2, 3 and 1s when we know that the whole playbook is open and it's most likely going to be the running game. So I think that's just the next step from him, but I love the growth. Claudin Sherrills actually seemed like a better athlete in terms of my opinion than Trevin Wallace. I think the difference in experience may be a factor as well, but he just plays faster in terms of playing the run sideline to sideline. He seems a little bit rangier in terms of like his size and his length and his measurables, but I think he may be a little bit lighter than Trevin. I would have to look at the numbers to see, but I thought he had a pretty solid game in terms of just running around and showing that speed, showing some flashes. He got pushed around a lot in coverage. He gets lost as well. He had a couple miscommunications where he completely abandoned Darnell Mooney down the sideline. But just another miscommunication that's not indiscriminate to anybody else on this unit. I thought Claudin Sherrills seemed fairly solid in that thing, and I think I saw him blitz a few times and loop around and do it with speed, do it with purpose. I complained and talked about our linebackers blitzing sometimes, and they kind of just do it aimlessly instead of actually trying to get home. They'll just do what's written on the paper versus actually trying to get sacks when they blitz. But I thought Claudin Sherrills did a fairly good job in that standpoint. Let's talk about the secondary. There's just still too many miscommunications, like I mentioned. The teams are just continuing to pick on them and pick on the fact that they can't sort out bunches and motions and stuff. The Falcons did this little trips bunch, and what they would do is they would just move Mooney around and just know that the Panthers aren't good at communicating, and it popped open for him at least 2 or 3 times. There was one time that just really pissed me the hell off where Darnell Mooney was completely empty. Like, Troy Hill and Michael Jackson both went to Darnell Mooney, and then once they saw that each other was going to Darnell Mooney, they both switched to London because they thought that they had the wrong man. So they both went to Mooney, both went to London, turned Mooney loose. Mooney caught the ball, fell, dropped the ball on the ground and fumbled it, and still stumbled for a 12-yard gain. All that happened while we were blowing the coverage and everybody was still guarding Drake London. Just continues to be issues from a veteran unit. This is the unit that's not injured. Yes, Jordan Fuller is injured, but you have Nick Scott, you have Xavier Woods, you have Mike Jackson, you have J.C. Horn. These guys should be able to diagnose, and they're going to continue to be picked on and continue to exploit. We know this is a copycat league. The Bears flooded those zones. I showed you in the defense's Why the Defense Sucks video last week about what they did to put Troy Hill in a bind, and they continue to do it this week, and it showed its head. it really did show his head. So you're going to continue to see these things happen when you put stuff on film that you're weak against. You're going to continue to see it on a week-to-week basis. Teams watch the same film I do, and if I see it, I sure as hell know they see it because they're a lot better football minds than me. So this is something that's going to completely be held against them until they figure out a way to clean it up. And these are things that should be cleaned up or could be cleaned up at any moment. And I think if they do that, they would have a pretty solid effort in terms of coverage when you put into account the lack of pass rush that they have to support them. So I'm just waiting on these guys to really step it up and figure things out, because we can't keep having these blown coverage and giving up big plays every game. It's really making the job harder for yourself when you're already not a great or overly talented unit in the first place. But in terms of just personnel, I think they need to figure out a way to get a big nickel. Now, it seems weird saying this because we just let Jeremy Chin walk and we didn't really use him at all, but Troy Hill continues to be put into the box. Teams are knowing he's going to be out there in coverage, lining up, and when people may be wondering, why are we in nickel so much when we run a 3-4? But we just match personnel with the team. When teams have 11 personnel, meaning one back and one tight end, that's what the digits stand for. The first digit is the running backs. The second digit is the amount of tight ends. When they have 11 personnel on there, meaning they have 3 wide receivers, you want to get an extra defensive back on the field to be able to match up with that. More teams play nickel on a down-to-down basis than any other personnel or formation. That's because more teams are spreading the field with 3 wide receivers. Since most people don't use a fullback, they add an extra wide receiver. That's just the nature of the NFL. So obviously you need a guy that can cover, and Troy Hill is pretty solid. He's used to this system. But when people say a big nickel, those are guys that are like a hybrid, safety, linebacker, tweener type of guy, aka a Jeremy Chin like guy that has solid enough cover skills, but also has size that you feel comfortable about him being in the box playing the run. That is not Troy Hill. Troy Hill's about 5'10", 190, 195 maybe. I don't know how much he is. He's a little bit older. He's not here to play the run on a consistent basis. The Falcons took advantage of that. They put their 11 personnel out there, but also ran the ball, used formations to motion to get Troy Hill to be in the box, to be somebody that was a part of the running game, and they continue to just push him around. There was run on the goal line where they pushed him around, man. I just felt so bad for him, bro. They bullied him. He rolled over on his head, got up, tried to make a tackle, and still fell down, just stumbling around. And you could just continue to see him making tackles down the field based off of just cutbacks by Algier, where they're running a full head of steam. And these are running backs that are huge, and they're trying to take his head off, running through him. He hung in there. I think he ended up having 8 total tackles, but that just lets you know how busy and active he is. You need a guy that's a bigger nickel that can come in. We don't have a bigger nickel because the guy behind Troy Hill is Shao Smith-Wade, who is pretty much the same measurables as Troy Hill. So there's only so much you can do there in that standpoint. But in terms of outside that corner, I thought J.C. Horn had a pretty solid game. He did have an interference. Of course, he gave up 1 reception for 3 yards, which was a touchdown to Drake London. I thought that was a phenomenal design and route. Drake London is about 6'4", a big body wide receiver. Instead of running just a regular slant versus press coverage, he really just turned, put JC on his back like he was boxing out for a rebound, and then he caught the ball. Now, J.C. Horn has given up another touchdown this week. He's been on the other end of some touchdowns on multiple occasions. Some of them were blown coverages. Some of them were miscommunications. This one was just him just flat out getting beat on a, I guess a pivot or a slant route by Drake London. But outside of that, I thought he was very, very sticky in coverage. Once again, he was very, very stout being a part of the running game because they were running outside so much. They try to crack the safety. The corner has to be the one to make those plays on the edge. And I saw J.C. Horn doing that on a consistent basis. He's done that all year on a consistent basis. I dropped a film breakdown on JC on my Patreon, so make sure you check that out if you have not, and become a member and get all the in-depth breakdowns and player profiles on there. But JC Horn has done a good job. I thought he had another opportunity to make a play. He's going to have to step up and make one of these plays one week. Another dropped interception return for a touchdown, potentially. Last week versus Caleb Williams on the first snap of the game, he dropped one. He dropped one this week, too. That was a little bit closer. His hands actually got on it. You just have to make those plays. We were up 7-0 at that point. If we get that and go up 14-0, I'm pretty sure we're going to win this game. With our running game and the way things are, having a 2-possession lead I know our defense sucks, but that gives them confidence. That gives them a boost. And they're going to have to live and die off of turnovers. They're not going to be able to consistently stop anybody. One of the worst red zone teams in the NFL in terms of defense, one of the worst scoring defenses in the league overall. So if you can steal extra possessions by getting turnovers, that would be their best way to go. They should just kind of accept who they are in terms of just sucking and try to get turnovers. And JC Horn's going to have to come up with one of these big plays one of these weeks, because the defense is just not good enough not to consistently get those type of plays. But Xavier Woods was pretty solid, but you could tell the communication was a factor. He blew a coverage where him and JC were both focused on Kyle Pitts. Underneath the fender. Kyle Pitts ended up going out the back door, and it was 50-yard game for Kyle Pitts, who has not done much in his career at all. So to see him actually produce versus us, it pisses me off. It really does. You know what I'm saying? A very talented player, but just unproductive for the most part for his career in terms of where he was drafted and what was expected out of him. But you can tell that the lack of communication is weighing on Xavier Woods, because we've always heard that he's one of the best and master communicators on this team. So to see continuously errors, you can see him showing that frustration on tape. Stuff goes wrong. It continues to go wrong. It snowballs. You have to kind of maintain your composure, because that's just the way it is, and get on to the next play. But I don't know. I think he's done a solid job. Not his best year thus far, of course, for what we've expected from him over the past few years. But I think Xavier Woods was a solid game overall, but despite the communication errors that's plagued this whole defense. But as a whole, the defense is still bad. There's singular efforts that you can pick out on a down-by-down basis, but nobody consistently putting efforts together. Nobody consistently putting efforts together at the same time as one another to make them a cohesive unit. They're just a bunch of spare pieces that you hope can make a play, can get a turnover, can potentially hold somebody to a field goal, but it just never seems to happen, as they continue to be on pace to be the worst scoring defense in NFL history. But yeah, man, I know our defense is a tough watch, but I've been taking advantage of it. Even last week, I was on my bookie and I placed a bet on the Falcons team total. And I said, hey, are they going to get over under 26.5 points? I took the over, and it was easy cash. They paid that off in the third quarter. So if you be realistic with yourself like me, you can take advantage of opportunities to make money on the Carolina Panthers being so bad on defense. And this week, I'm potentially looking at the Washington Commanders, and they're coming in, and their team total is set at 30.5. The Panthers are giving up the most points per game in the league. So if you put some money on the over, you can make some money. And I'm going to be doing that this week. And so if you want to do like me and get paid, I'll be dropping more plays in my preview video this week for next week's matchup. But go ahead and lock it in now. Go to mybookie.ag using that link down below and use the code UBST to get 100% deposit match. MyBookie is going to be the place where you can bet anytime, anywhere, and on anything. And this week, I'm betting on those Panthers defense continuing to be just as bad as it has been. So make sure you go to MyBookie and use the code UBST for 100% deposit match on your first deposit. And let's go ahead and get paid, even though the Panthers aren't winning or having the success on the field that we like. All right, so let's change gears to the offense, man. I'm going to be reading off my old school Steno notepad and looking at my notes. Overall, I thought the offense was okay. They're just going to be a average, capable, functioning offense for the most part, I guess. And I'll say that I'm actually, during the game, I get a little bit more skeptical of Dave Canales' call and balance between run and pass. But if you look at the analytics, NFL ELO, they have a rating where they have a pass rate and a run rate, and the Panthers pass 64% of the time. Yes, 64% of the plays they run are pass plays. So, that's number 8. That's the 8th highest in the league in terms of the pass rate. So it does seem very pass happy, and that's how it feels on Sunday. It feels like we don't run enough. They also have a rating for pass rate over expected. Now, pass rate over expected is basically down in distance, the scoreboard, what's the deficit in terms of like how much time is left. There's a certain point in the game where you have to throw the ball. You know, like running the ball is kind of out of the equation. Ideally, we're able to stick with the run early to keep the game close for the whole game, shorten the game, and then whatever. So pass rate over expected means like, okay, this is an expected rate based off of how bad you guys are losing and what we expect you to pass. And according to NFL ELO, they actually have a pass rate over expected that's negative. Yes, meaning that they actually run more than they probably should have for a team that's losing as much as the Panthers do. So if you want to trust the analytics, you want to be a nerd, you can. But honestly, as a fan, I feel like we still can run the ball a lot more than we do. Yes, we may be down one possession, but I feel like our most efficient play in the playbook is a good old handoff to Chuba Hubbard. We just don't do it enough. I think if we did it enough, the game would be closer. But that's just what the numbers say. But I do love, even though he is pass happy, I do love the designs that he's putting together in terms of the scheme. I think guys are getting open consistently. And we knew we were skeptical and critical of Bryce Young. But in terms of Andy Dalton, we have to have a discussion about Andy Dalton as well. Now, Andy Dalton did start out hot against the Las Vegas Raiders, cooking. He had some highlights against the Bengals as well that kept us in the game. But I talked about it before. Andy Dalton is going to be as good as the weapons that you put around him. He is experienced. He can read coverages. He can get the ball out quick. And I think that helps our offensive line because they don't have to protect. We know we've heard the 2.7 or less, but I think it's become a detriment. Andy Dalton is second in the league in time to throw. Time to throw is the time from the snap to when he gets rid of the football. And that is 2.55 seconds. Yes, under the 2.7 threshold that Dave Canales has. That 2.55 time is the second fastest in the league. Yes, second fastest time to throw in the league. There was a chart that came out today that showed how often quarterbacks throw to their first read and how successful that is. And it's pretty much, I call it the Deontay Johnson chart because we've heard Dave Canales go on record saying that our offense ends with Deontay. We're going to try to set him up to get open. Once the defense has to give more attention to that, we're going to use the extra attention that's allocated to him to go to other guys and set things up. Fine philosophy. It's okay. Do you think this philosophy will work a little bit better with a higher caliber receiver than Deontay? Yes, but there are matchups in the league that Deontay will excel against. And Andy Dalton seemed to be one of the higher quarterbacks that threw to his first read. I think it's around the 70 percentile. I'll put the chart up, which is crazy to me because that lets you know that Andy's not going through his reads. And that makes sense. If he's not going through his reads, he's going to get the ball out quick. And he's predetermining based off of, I think, what he sees pre-snap. I think ideally you want to see pre-snap and make a guess what it is. Once the ball is snapped, use what they shift to or run to confirm what you think is going to be, and then you make your read and go through progressions accordingly. It feels like Andy Dalton sometimes is so locked on to getting that ball out quick. He knows where he's going to go because he's seen so many coverages. So it makes sense, and it's fine, I guess, because Deontay does get open consistently, but as soon as he gets the ball, he's getting rid of that thing, whether it's to Deontay or getting to the check down so fast, and I think it's leaving plays on the field. And I think it's funny and ironic that so many people talked about if you put Bryce in, you're not going to be able to see the receivers develop. They're not going to get any opportunities and stuff like that. But Andy Dalton is missing opportunities himself by not getting through his progressions. Yes, Deontay is going to get fed. He'll be happy. Hopefully he'll stick around because we know all big-time diva receivers want the football. But you can't talk about the detriment of your young wide receivers when they're getting open and you're not getting them the ball because you're predetermining where you're going. You're getting to your check down too fast. You're not running the offense and going through your reads like you're supposed to. Because I've seen Xavier Legette putting in serious work, getting opportunities down the field that could take some shots, but Andy Dalton's not going to him late in the down. Andy Dalton's going to read the matchup pre-snap. If he likes the one-on-one coverage, then he'll throw it deep and take a shot then. But he's not going through his scan saying, oh, snap, Xavier Legette's open on the post deep after I got off of Deontay and then taking that shot. No. He's sitting in that pocket, even though the offensive line protection has been pretty solid. He's getting that ball out quick, and that does help their protection number, so it helps boost them and not get pressures because you don't have to block that long. But at the same time, you're leaving meat on the bones. I always talk about leaving meat on the bones. When I was a kid, I used to, now I'm different. When I was a child, I operated as a child, but now I'm a grown man. When I eat my wings, I clean my wings. I don't eat the gristle and all that stuff, but I don't leave no meat on the bones. Whether it's a flat or a drum, I'm getting the meat off the bones. I'm not doing that. I was a kid and I was doing that stuff. You never want to leave meat on the bones. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're going to give it to your dog afterwards, don't leave no meat on the bones. You got to clean your bones. And I think with our offense, he is missing opportunities to have this a little bit more of an explosive unit. David Legette, like I said, opportunities. Jalen Coker, missing opportunities for him as well. We saw the interception where he locked in on Ian Thomas, and there was underneath to Jonathan Mingo to let Mingo do his thing after the catch. So Andy Dalton is definitely not perfect. I think he's a middle of the road, average quarterback, average, you know what I'm saying? Average may be okay. Average is going to allow us to get people the football. Average is going to allow us to function to a certain extent. You pair that with a pretty high efficient running game with the running backs averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. Things don't seem like the worst in the world, but when you go against a top tier defense like the Bears, it shows its head. And so I think against these bottom feeder defenses, we'll continue to make some plays, move the ball, look functional. But once you start playing against some of the big dogs like the Bears or anybody similar down the stretch, you will continue to get exposed. And I think it'll just be interesting. I think Andy Dalton has got the pick of the litter in terms of playing some bad defenses. Bryce Young played some pretty good defenses early on. Not saying that that's an excuse for Bryce and Bryce will be better. It's just no. That's why it looks like such a stark difference versus those bad defenses. And then Andy Dalton really has thrown 4 picks or 2 or 3 picks over the last couple of games. So it feels better because we're actually moving the ball, scoring 20 points a game, but there's still a lot left to be desired overall, man. Just too many opportunities left over. But I did like what I saw in that tempo and the 2-minute drive before half, just getting things clicking, getting the rookies involved, Leggett, Sanders, Coker moving the sticks. It just feels like a good cohesive unit. I love to see the young guys get involved, and it just feels great because this is something that typically doesn't happen for our team. We don't let young guys typically get involved, but they had men on that drive. Now, in terms of pass protection with the O-line, I think it was solid for the most part. We know Yosh Njiman got the start for Taylor Moton, and of course, Brady Christiansen got the start at center for Austin Corbett. Of course, we had a good old-fashioned Icky game, especially at home, where you had multiple mental errors by Icky in terms of false start pre-snaps, but I thought he showed good feet and patience and a nice little punch and extension and pass pro. Going against a guy like Matthew Judon, who's a little bit older, but a pretty seasoned pass rusher, he didn't look intimidated. He didn't look overmatched. I think what gives Icky trouble is the guys with the fast first step that can bend that corner and stuff like that. But in terms of just a guy that's going to try to hand fight with Icky and like try to use moves to chop his arms, Icky's been pretty solid holding up overall. And I think he's had a solid year pretty much in general, which is a good sign because we can't afford to run back the clock on Icky. We're going to have to make a 5th-year option decision on him in the offseason. I want to see this continue to play out, but I love what I'm seeing from Icky. And y'all know me. I'm quick to pull out the belt when Icky does something bad, you know what I'm saying? And like, y'all follow me on Twitter. Y'all know me how I do on game days, but Icky has kept those Icky type of moments to a minimum for the most part, except this past Sunday, and the false starts got to go. Brady Christiansen was definitely tested, but I thought he did well. I thought he did well at center. Now, me personally, I like Andrew Raym, the undrafted free agent we got. That was a true center, played center in college, but he's in concussion protocol. Now, Brady Christiansen got to start at center, first time starting at center, played some snaps last week, didn't give up pressure this week. He had a 76 rating according to PFF, and like I said, no pressure surrendered. I thought in the running game, he showed a lot of good strength in the combos. I think the fact that as long as we have those 2 big boys at guard with Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, whoever's in the middle, if they can communicate and work together, they're going to be fine. I thought Brady Christiansen being able to be uncovered and help in the running game and just be that double team guy that, yeah, the guy may be head up with Damian Lewis or head up with Robert Hunt, but him being able to come over and help double team, being that second impact guy instead of being the initial punch guy, it allows him to get a free shot on whoever's he's double teaming, and he created movement pretty much all day. It's not nasty, but you can definitely see the power and the strength from Brady that he's been able to develop over the years since he switched from playing tackle to being into the interior and playing guard and now center. But I just love what I saw. In terms of pass pro, he's going to have to getting used to playing against zero techniques. And zero techniques is that nose guard that's lined up dead up, head in front of you. Because when he had that happen, which is an adjustment, we heard Austin Corbett talk about that, a guy that's inexperienced at center, talking about getting used to having a guy head up on you and having to snap the ball, step up, and make a punch. Now, Brady Christiansen, he has one of the best get-offs. It's not get-off like a pass rusher, but get-off in terms of O-line and blocking, and of most O-linemen in general, because he just times the snap up great. He has a good reaction, and that gives him an advantage because when you're up first and you're ready, you're going to be able to read the defender first. If you laid out your stance, you're going to be at a disadvantage. But having a zero tech on him kind of overwhelmed him at times, and he does lack that strength. And I saw a couple bull rushes that got him pushed back, but like I said, still no pressure's giving up, but you can see him not being able to anchor as much as they would like. We talked about strengthening that interior on the offensive line to be able to give Bryce Young at the time and a space to step up. And so he's going to have to work on anchoring, because you got some big boys beside you that are strong, that don't really get pushed back that often like that. So you're going to be able to hold your weight. And of course, when you have that zero technique, you're pretty much one-on-one on the island. That guy is coming straight at you, but you have to snap, get your hands up and do things like that, or snap and run block him. We saw a few times where it caused him to have a bad snap, and that ended up being a negative play. But I just think it's something that's learning on the job, just going to come with time. I'm excited. I think Brady is smart enough of an athlete and a player that he'll be able to figure things out. If he could end up being our center of the future, or at worst a depth piece, I'm ready to ink a contract for Brady Christiansen after this season. I thought Yosh was a little bit grabby in terms of pass pro, but he got away with it. They just don't have a lot of explosiveness off the edge to really test him like that, so he got away with it. I thought it was fine. In the first half, there was some miscommunication. You can just tell by him not playing that he was blowing assignments in the run game, letting guys come free. It's the same thing in the pass. But he cleaned it up pretty good. In terms of blitz pickup, I thought the O-line did another phenomenal job with the twist, the stunts, the zone blitzes. The only weak link was the running backs. They were missing their blocks on linebackers. They would pick it up and sort it out and mentally be there and know the assignment, but they were just getting overwhelmed. But the offensive line did a good job of sorting out those twists and stunts. In terms of the running game, there was a struggle to start. So I got to give kudos to Dave Canales. I talked about the pass rate over expected. He stayed with the running game, even though it really wasn't doing much in the first half. The second half is when it really, really cranked up. But shout out to him for staying with it, because this is what it is. We have a big offensive line. These teams do not want to wrestle with us, bro. They really don't. So you just got to keep with it, stay on it, stay stubborn, and you're going to wear them down. And that's exactly what happened. Literally the first drive of the second half, we started popping long runs after they were doing pretty good in the first half. So if you just stay with it, lean on them, let this downhill running back like Chuba keep going at them down after down, let the big boys lean on them, throw them around like Robert Hunt does. It's gonna keep happening. And so just a prime example of what we saw, because the second half was much more productive. And I thought, like I said, Brady fit seamlessly in those combo blocks. I loved what I saw. Showed a little bit more physicality than I expected on those combo blocks. So happy to see that. But I just have to say, Damian Lewis continues to impress me. Now, I know Robert Hunt is the big money guy. He's probably better overall, but I just think that Damian Lewis's mentality and impact is just different. Now, Robert Hunt gets all the pancakes because he goes for the pancakes, but I just think in terms of just mean, nasty, physicality on a down-by-down basis, I think Damian Lewis is the meanest one on the line, bro. And like, you can really tell the difference. Zavala did a fine job when he was in for him, but Damian Lewis just brings a different mentality, a different mindset, a different level of play. His combo blocks with Icky, his combo blocks with Brady are just nasty. And he may not be the guy that gets to the second level like Robert Hunt and climbs and do that thing, but in terms of when they're running their way, this guy is going to get movement every time, just continuously and consistently displacing guys, moving them off the spot, moving them out of the areas in their gap that they wanted to, and continue to create lanes for Chuba. Chuba is one of the highest running backs in terms of yards before contact, meaning that before he even gets touched, he's getting a solid amount of yards, and that's because our big guys are moving guys around and allowing Chuba to get to the second level, allowing him to be a very productive back. I'm excited to see what Jonathan Brooks can do, because he's one of those home run type hitters. If you can get him into the second level, he can break those long runs once he gets his leg back underneath them. So I'm excited to see that potential. But wide receivers, they showed some consistency on the route running. I really like what I saw. Xavier Legette, big steps in terms of just making plays. He had a nice third down catch. Obviously, he got into the end zone again. Finally got to see him in the red zone, high pointing the ball instead of throwing fades to Deontay Johnson. But Deontay still getting those red zone targets. A phenomenal route by him in the red zone. And like I said, I think there was a missed opportunity for Xavier Legette on multiple occasions. There's one play that I saw him just completely checked down to Chuba, even though he had an opportunity to go to Deontay right there. And don't say that the read was on the opposite side of the field. He's not looking that way. Literally, Deontay was behind him, but before Deontay could even turn around, the ball was out. So I think that Andy has to continue to be just a tick more patient, and he'll be able to find more and more plays. There's more explosives on the field. And I don't think Andy Dalton is the only one that's left opportunities on the field. The offensive line did. There's some plays down the field that Andy Dalton couldn't get to because of the pressure, so we had to check it down or go somewhere else. And then Chuba Hubbard, there's blocking that he's supposed to follow on like a pin and pull. I'll put it up there that instead of following the pulling guard, he went outside. And so you just have to kind of do that. When he went inside, if he went inside, it would have been a touchdown. So you just kind of have to do what's there, take advantage. And these are things that are difference between winning and losing games, especially when you have a bad defense. You don't have a ton of room for error. So when there are opportunities there in front of you, you have to take advantage. The same way I talked about J.C. Horn taking advantage of pick sixes, the same way I need to see our offense do it. And I think that we have an opportunity to take this team up a notch and more to a top 15 type of offense in the league, which would be very, very formidable for having a 36-year-old quarterback in Andy Dalton, you know what I'm saying, and not really anybody completely dominant on the outside. So I think with Dave Canales' scheme and what we're trying to do, we look pretty good. Nothing really overly complicated and cute. Like Ben Johnson, even though Dave Canales tried to do that with the little fake screen seam to Ian Thomas and then a flea flicker, I just think he got too cute. Let's stick to the basics. Dial up your shot plays, your crossing plays, get your guys involved on the end arounds, the pitches and stuff like that. But trying to get too cute at once in the same drive, it just didn't make sense. And I just think keeping it steady, sticking to the run game, getting those 5, 6, 10 yards a pop from Chuba is just a way to continue to go and wear down teams. Jalen Coker looks steady, man, and he looks ready, bro. He looks ready to be able to get more looks and more opportunities. He actually outsnapped Jonathan Mingo this week. Yes, he outsnapped Jonathan Mingo. If you want to see my film breakdown on Coker, I dropped one on the Patreon as well. Gonna keep shamelessly plugging that. But I loved what I saw from Coker, man. Like, if he could develop into a consistent chain mover that's like your wide receiver 3 or something like that, that would be phenomenal, especially for an undrafted free agent. These guys are guys that you don't expect a ton from, but getting a guy to give us production that cheap it will be great. Because this guy's route running is on another level, bro. He understands zone coverage. He understands pacing. He understands tempo. He understands how to attack defenders in off coverage and press coverage. He's continued to excel. Like I said, you really got to go check out that breakdown on him specifically on my Patreon. But I'm really excited about the upside for him. Now, I was one of the ones that didn't want to buy into the hype because he's an undrafted free agent. I know Smitty gave him the stamp. I know fans loved him. But I just didn't want to put too much on him too early and just have the expectations that were crazy. We've had some crazy expectations from undrafted free agents over the years. So I just wanted to pump the brakes. But I'm seeing some promise. So we'll see how things get adjusted once Adam Thielen finally comes back. But this guy can be in a consistent chain mover. He may not have the high upside because of the lack of athleticism, but I think he has the size, the savviness, the hands, the consistency, dependability in terms of just route running and being where you're supposed to be. That could be any quarterback's best friend, and he's only a rookie. But the other side of it is XL. I thought he showed competitiveness at the catch point. You saw the fade. You saw him catching a third down that was behind him and still securing the catch. Just continue to showing growth. He just needs more opportunities as well. I know Deontay gets all the targets, but we have some other guys that if Andy gets through his reads, they can show some things too that I think fans will be excited about. So stay and pay attention to that. I gave you the numbers on how often he goes to his first read. But that first read, Deontay, quiet as kept. The numbers may not show. He only had 3 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown, and then like a 12-yard pass interference drawn. But he kind of had A.J. Terrell in a blender for most of the game. People aren't going to talk about that because A.J. Terrell had that final pick on Andy Dalton, but Deontay kind of had him in the blender. He's just too twitchy. Now, Deontay is smaller, but he's quick. There's certain types of corners that he's going to be able to have his way against all day. And A.J. Terrell doesn't have the foot speed to be able to stick with Deontay Johnson in the short area. Deontay Johnson is just way too quick in and out of breaks. He doesn't give away things when he runs routes. He does give away stuff. It's just he's a salesman. He's going to sell one route and do something else. And so I think that certain corners, he's going to give trouble. And A.J. Terrell was on the menu on Sunday, and he was lunch meat for the most part. You know what I'm saying? So quiet as kept. he was having work on $100 million corner. So just put that in your cap for later and put it on a bulletin board, whatever. Put a pin in it and think about that later. We'll discuss at a later date. But Jonathan Mingo, it seems like his role is just as a blocker and an underneath guy. He does that little chip and release thing that we usually use our tight ends for. He's a physical part of the running game in terms of blocking, so they're going to continue to use him. But again, like I said, he was outsnapped by Jalen Coker, who seems to fit more of a better role in terms of receiver, just because, like I said, his route running is phenomenal. He doesn't give away routes when he runs it. He sells everything. He runs it with good tempo, pretty much the same speed the whole time, which was a good pace. And so it's hard for corners to get a read on what he's going to do because he steps on the toes of defenders and then he breaks and doesn't give them enough time to react. And so that puts them in a bind and is able to create separation. So I'm really excited about a guy like Coker. And you can see the coach is giving him the opportunities that he deserves and that he's earned. And so shout out to them for not being married to draft position because they didn't draft Mingo. But I do think Mingo has a little bit more he can do in terms of just getting that check down guy and getting some yards at the catch. And he has to just give it to him when the check down is there. But I just think I like what I'm seeing from the young guys. The tight end position, Ian Thomas, the drops, being targeted on the interception, whatever. JT Sanders, the drop, but catching that pass down the seam, good to see him bounce back. I'm hoping that next year will be a bigger growth year for JT Sanders. He's still getting a lot of playing time, so getting the snaps that you deserve. Most tight ends have that trajectory where it takes them a few years to develop. I'm just glad he's actually getting the playing time now while we're trash anyway, and it doesn't matter a ton right now. And so hopefully he'll continue to grow and be a factor for us down the line. But you guys let me know down below in the comments if you had any specific questions about the film that you want me to answer. I did a deep dive. I try to do pretty precise per position group on each side of the ball, name some players that spotlighted. I'll keep trying this. Let me know if you like this format of a video versus these player spotlight. Like I said, it's a little bit more extended, but I give a little bit more content for what is going on, a little bit more support in terms of just showing the plays as well. Not so much of me deep diving with a pencil and drawing up illustrated plays, but a little bit more discussion like and podcast like. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you watch this whole thing, man, love you guys. Hit the subscribe button. Again, if you want the in-depth player profile breakdowns, make sure you hit the Patreon, patreon.com/UB Sports Talk. I'll put that down in the description as well. I really appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.